wealthy businessman is murdered in his Florida home.
There was blood spatter everywhere. It was on the walls, on the sink, on the bathtub.
It was determined that 10 shots had been fired, and it could have been 2 shooters.
And there are plenty of suspects, all with a personal axe to grind.
His dad left him to hang out to dry, and also emotionally abused him.
It turned out my father had this woman that he's going to lunch with her, going to dinner with her.
Are you best friends?
Beyond best friends.
Did you shoot your father?
Absolutely not.
When a hidden journal reveals the truth, a killer's motive becomes crystal clear.
You really see the inner workings of her thoughts.
This is a classic case of love and revenge.
My father pushed her, and she snapped.
Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
Friday, September 30th, 2011. It's a warm fall day in the seaside town of Jupiter, Florida.
Jupiter, Florida, a beautiful place, right on the coast in South Florida, very affluent, nice area.
We have some famous people that live in there. It's a really, really high-end community.
But even the wealthy enclave known as Admiral's Cove isn't immune to violent crime. Just after 7 a.m., private security guards respond to alarms set off at the home of Donna Horwitz, his wife Donna, and their 37-year-old son, Radley.
One of the alarms detected a glass break.
The guard at Admiral's Cove actually went to the house in a golf cart, and when he got to the door, he was greeted by Radley Horwitz.
He must have been, actually on the street at the time because he arrived really, really fast.
Radley tells the guard he doesn't know what happened.
I still don't remember if it was my phone alarm or the house alarm that woke me up, but it was gunfire and screaming and the alarm going off.
Donna Horwitz was standing in the living room, very upset.
She was saying, like, Radley, your father. And she said, like, he was so awful. But she kept repeating, he was so awful, he was so awful, he was so awful.
Donna appeared to experience some degree of shock over what she said she found. She suggested that it was a suicide and that Lanny had been emotionally unstable and had talked about suicide.
Radley directs the guard to his father's bathroom, where he is met by a gruesome scene. Lying in the shower is 66-year-old Donna Horwitz, covered in blood, with an apparent gunshot wound to his head.
The security guard saw Lanny on the floor with a gun in his hand. He did move the gun to the hallway, and then he tried to perform life-saving techniques and realized that Lanny wasn't breathing and there was no heartbeat.
Yes, this is Admiral Security calling in because we have a dead person.
Okay, did he shoot himself?
That's what it sounds like to me.
Okay, so he committed suicide.
Right.
This is a very secure, safe neighborhood, and there was no reason to expect that it had been anything but a suicide. When police arrived there at the house at Admiral's Cove, Donna Horwitz and Radley Horwitz were asked to be seated in the front seat of a car that remained in the driveway.
I remember I asked one of the cops, I'm like, is my dad, I felt like such an idiot, but I'm like, is my dad alive? He just shook his head, no.
The first thing I did was assess the scene in the bathroom. There was blood spatter everywhere, pretty much. It was on the walls, on the sink, on the bathtub.
The shower was still running. Mr. Horwitz was nude, and had apparently been showering at the time that this had happened.
A single detail immediately stands out as odd to investigators.
He was kind of on his side, and there was a phone receiver next to his hand.
The way the blood splatter is, Lanny's trying to get to that phone that's in the bathroom, which if you're committing suicide, you're not going to try to pick up the phone.
Obviously, law enforcement wants to know what happened. What precipitated this event in this house? And was nobody else present?
I was shell-shocked. I couldn't believe that my dad was gone.
Born in Buffalo, New York on July 30th, 1945, Donna Horwitz learned the power of money at a young age.
My dad's father was successful. He'd been a furrier, and then he got into real estate. So my dad grew up with 3 other siblings and had a happy, comfortable life growing up. But his father instilled a very good work ethic in him.
Lanny proved to be a natural entrepreneur and started building his own fortune at the age of 16.
He was very, very driven, very motivated. He was trading stocks. He was involved in real estate with his father, and he was a real go-getter.
Lanny was just as driven when it came to matters of the heart.
Lanny and Donna Horwitz met and started dating when she was about 15 and he was about 16.
The story my father told me was when he saw my mom coming down the stairs at this house that, like, he knew right then that's who he wanted to marry.
Donna, she had been raised with money.
My grandfather on my mom's side, Dan Carnevale, is very successful. He was a local baseball celebrity in Buffalo with the Bisons, and he knew absolutely everybody in town. My mom was very warm, and everybody loved her.
The two dated throughout their teenage years and got married in 1967, just before Donna's 21st birthday.
The families were supportive. The wedding made the paper and stuff like that because of my grandfather. Like, everybody was pretty happy.
4 years later, Lanny graduated from law school and continued to pursue a career in real estate.
And my thing with a law degree is it's like karate. It's very good to know, and you hope you never need it. So being a developer, it was extremely helpful for him in business.
Donna and Lanny had their son Radley in 1974. A few years after that, they moved to get away from the harsh New York winters.
Buffalo, New York, the blizzard of '77, they're still talking about up there. And my father was stuck downtown for several days in an office building. It was that bad of a storm. That was what convinced my parents to do the pilgrimage down to South Florida.
Real estate in Florida has historically been very profitable. This was a ripe place to be able to come and make money.
The move paid off. Lanny quickly found success in the Sunshine State.
He provided very well for the family. Donna was a homemaker.
In Jupiter, the place that my parents built in, it was called Admiral's Cove. It was a private community, water access, and very affluent, very nice. A lot of money, nice cars, boats, golf courses, tennis, all that sort of thing.
Radley Horwitz was an only child. He had a very good education. He was a well-educated, very smart young man.
Growing up, most of the memories were happy with my parents, and we took a lot of trips. London when I was a little kid. We were in Italy at the Vatican about a week before the Pope was shot. Went to Hawaii, and they'd started building this ridiculously big house up in Asheville, North Carolina.
To all outward appearances, the Horwitz family had it all.
They had a very high standard of living, I think there was a Maserati. They had the North Carolina home. They're flying first class. All the accoutrements to what people perceive as success.
But now, the good life has come to a tragic end. Initially called in as a suicide, Florida police are finding more evidence that Lanny's death may have involved foul play.
There was a bullet hole in a towel that was draped over the shower door, and it had stippling, which would be gunpowder burns on the outside of the towel, which tells you that the gunshot was from the outside and not coming from the inside of the shower.
It was clear to them that this was not a suicide.
Now we need to find out who killed Donna Horwitz.
Coming up, scandalous secrets are exposed.
It looked like it was more than just a business relationship.
And detectives question whether they're looking for more than one suspect.
10 shots had been fired. It could have been 2 shooters.
After finding evidence that Donna Horwitz was murdered, Florida police open a homicide investigation.
Once the medical examiner arrived, he rolled the body over and we were able to get a better look at the wounds on his body.
Even though you couldn't tell how many times he'd been shot, it was clear and obvious to the police that he'd been shot more than once.
We noticed there were multiple bullet wounds on his right arm, on his torso.
The medical examiner transports the body for further examination, leaving detectives to determine how and why the shooting happened and who did this.
There were projectiles pretty much everywhere in the bathroom. They were in the shower on the floor. There were some in the walls. There were some in the bathtub.
It was determined that 10 shots had been fired, at least one of which is what set the glass shatter alarm off.
The revolver found near Lanny's body provides an important clue.
The gun didn't have enough capacity to have fired all the number of bullets that had been fired.
So if the person was to use the same weapon, they would have to remove the casings and reload that firearm.
Investigators question if this could point to a second murder weapon or something even more sinister.
It could have been 2 shooters. There was a search warrant obtained from a judge to be able to search the house thoroughly from top to bottom.
In total, we collected about 26 firearms from the home. We weren't expecting to find that many firearms in the house.
There was a firearm found in a locked safe, and in the attic, there was a very extensive, expensive collection of firearms.
Most of the weapons are safely locked away and have not been fired recently. But they find one that has.
Another officer did find another firearm on the dresser in the master bedroom that's connected to where the bathroom is.
The gun is also a revolver with 5 spent casings. Detectives send the 2 revolvers to a crime lab for ballistics testing and continue their search.
They examined the perimeter of the home and determined that all the windows and doors were secure, locked from the inside. So there was no evidence that somebody had broken in.
Now we have to think, is it somebody who was let in the house? Was it somebody in the house?
It would be obvious that they would want to know from Donna Horwitz and Donna Horwitz what's been going on.
Officers first try talking to Donna.
She was sitting in the front passenger seat of a car in the driveway. She was in her pajamas. She had bare feet. She had her knees up to her chest and rocking back and forth.
She kept saying, "Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy." And she just kept saying that sitting in the car, "Oh boy." My mom refused to talk to anybody.
She's not really communicating. She doesn't want to give a statement. So all of these things could be suggestive of somebody who's in a state of shock from trauma.
Her son, Radley, seems more capable of answering their questions.
The detectives asked to talk to me in their car, and they were parked right in front of the house. We sat in the car for maybe like 20 minutes. It was, so what did you see?
I was sound asleep, and it was like pop, pop, and the alarm was going off, and I heard screaming. I was scared.
My pocket door, there's a little alcove, and it looks across the living room and front entrance. My parents' bedroom was on the other side.
What was your mom's demeanor? How was she acting?
She was screaming.
Was she saying anything, what happened, or what's going on?
She was distraught, and, I got her some water, and she calmed, down.
Through the bedroom door, he caught a glimpse of his father.
My father was laying on the floor facing away from me, and then he made that horrible gurgling noise, and I got out of there. I never went into the bathroom.
When asked why he didn't immediately call 911, Radley claims he was in shock, and the guards showed up before he had the chance.
He was very confused about what had happened and, obviously and understandably very upset.
Radley says he didn't see who shot his father, but wants to help investigators however he can.
I was trying to, cooperate with them. They asked if they could do a gunshot residue test on me. I'm like, okay. I'm like, let's do the test.
But when investigators ask him if he knows of any reason why someone might want to do this, he reveals his father wasn't exactly a saint.
There were allegations or accusations that Lanny developed an affair or a more than business relationship with his business partner.
My parents wound up getting divorced in, 2000, I think. After my parents divorced, my mom thought he'd been involved with Francine. But then when my mom and dad got back together, my mom finds out that my father's going to lunch with her, going to dinner with her.
He explained that Francine was an acquaintance, that she was actually in business with Mr. Horwitz.
My father kept telling her that she was just a business partner, but it looked like it was more than just a business relationship. There was a lot of sneaky stuff going on there with her.
So clearly, Radley also shed some light on that relationship. He was, shocked and disappointed that his dad was going to continue with this behavior, which clearly was upsetting to Donna Horwitz.
He brought me something to sign, some legal stuff. And I'm like, what's this? And he goes, oh, I'm just doing something with the life insurance. Just sign that. So I sign it. And I found out later, I signed over $200,000 of his life insurance money to Francine.
That tells me that there's motivation there. She could have been looking to angle that for herself.
After learning of Lanny Horwitz's possible affair, detectives need to have conversations with the women in his life.
Our goal was, if one of them would agree to talk to us, we would let them tell us what happened. Donna Horwitz got an attorney right away, and we were informed by the attorney that she would not be speaking with us.
Thankfully, Radley knows where they can find Francine.
Francine lived right down the street, so she was in the same development.
Detectives pay her a visit and deliver news of Lanny's murder.
She was very distraught, very emotionally upset, almost in shock.
Okay. Obviously, we've just explained to you that Lanny, who you know, has been found dead. Okay.
How then? Why?
Well, we'll explain all that to you, but we'd like to ask you a few questions first.
Francine says she and Lanny were supposed to be leaving that morning on a business trip to North Carolina.
We couldn't wait.
Okay.
He had planned this whole entire week of such fun at the Grove Park Inn.
To investigators, it sounds like more than just business, which seems to confirm Radley's suspicions.
Okay. If you don't mind my asking just a personal question, are you
This is never.
okay? Ever friends?
Your best friend.
She found him to be very near and dear to her heart. She indicated, though, that Mr. Horwitz had deeper feelings for her than she was ready for at that time. She admitted that Mr. Horwitz had asked her to marry him, but she had declined that offer because, as she explained it, she was recently divorced and wasn't ready to move on.
Well, we were told that you and he had a relationship.
Oh, by her?
But that's not.
When they ask Francine about the life insurance policy, she says she didn't expect anything from Lanny.
Do you know who his beneficiary is on his will?
He said to me, Fran, I took care of you. I said, what? He said, I'm not going to laugh. Is it going to be a penny? Joking, Nicole.
Right.
And he goes, you'll see. Joking. Always joking.
Police did ask Francine where she had been around 7 a.m. She was able to fairly readily prove to them that she'd gotten up and was packing and getting ready to pick him up at 8. Clearly, she was very distraught about what had happened to him. And, you know, they were confident that Francine didn't have anything to do with this.
According to Francine, investigators should be looking at Lanny's wife, Donna Horwitz.
Francine told police that Donna Horwitz and Lanny Horwitz had been married, divorced. And there was discontent and arguments and a volatile kind of a relationship.
Francine tells investigators Lanny recently hit a breaking point and asked Donna to move out.
Francine told police that Lanny Horwitz had confided in her that he was afraid of Donna. According to Francine, she had said to Lanny Horwitz, you need to hide your guns.
When they ask her about Radley Horwitz, she has a similar response.
Is he your buddy?
We don't know. That's what we're trying to find out.
He's not a trophy son.
Okay.
Just a baby.
Right.
He said to me, if anything happens to me, promise me that you will fight to the end to see that I get justice.
Based on Francine's interview, Donna and Radley could both have motive. And when the autopsy results come in, they point to a crime of passion.
It was concluded that there were 9 bullet wounds, including one to the mouth.
The last shot in the mouth is overkill. That's an emotional reaction. That's a reaction that usually comes with anger or rage.
So police talked to the alarm company. In this case, in looking at the display panel of the alarm, no door had been opened prior to the 911 call.
There were only 2 people that could be suspects, Donna and Radley. Either Radley did it, Donna did it, or they both did it together.
Coming up, detectives pit son against mother.
Based on what you told us about the morning, It just seems like there's still something missing here.
But their suspects both refuse to crack.
He said, all I can tell you is there were only 2 of us in the house, and I didn't do it.
It's been 6 days since the brutal murder of Donna Horwitz. And after speaking with Francine, investigators are determined to get answers. Radley Horwitz proves to be more cooperative than his mother.
His attorney arranged for him to arrive at the Jupiter Police Department for a videotaped and audio-taped interview with detectives.
Let's go over again. You tell us in your words what happened that morning.
I just saw like my mom screaming and running like in and out of the bedroom.
Radley goes on to describe hearing a clicking noise, as if a gun was running out of ammo but still being triggered.
Was the gun still in her hand?
You know, I don't know, so I'm not going to say. I don't know.
Detectives suspect Radley is holding back, so they push harder.
Based on what you told us about the morning, it just seems like there's still something missing here. I just want to ask you, did you shoot your father, or were you involved in any way?
Absolutely not. I did not shoot my father. I was not involved in any way. I was woken up to gunfire.
Radley would only ever tell us, all I can tell you is there were only 2 of us in the house, and I didn't do it.
Despite his insistence, Radley does admit his relationship with his father was rocky at times.
I remember them asking me if my dad was abusive, and I said only mentally. I used the term needling at the time. Like that he could push your buttons.
The source of their conflict was connected to Radley's past legal problems.
My parents got me into guns when I was younger, and I really took to it. So I decided to get an FFL license, federal firearms license, and start a little gun business.
So we wanted to, at one point, buy an accessory that would transform a gun, you know, that was not an automatic into an automatic weapon, and didn't know if it was legal or not.
I showed it to my dad. I'm like, oh my God, look what these guys are selling online, this thing. And he says, just order it. And he's the smart one. He's the lawyer.
According to Radley, he said, I followed his advice and I bought it. Well, of course, the ATF, in short order, arrested Radley for purchasing that equipment.
As a result of that arrest, Radley's vehicle was confiscated and he was sentenced to federal prison.
I got 5 months down in a minimum security camp in Miami.
Because of the firearms conviction, Radley Horwitz was forbidden by law to ever possess a gun. He couldn't have his shop, and he largely blamed his father for that.
That was a huge, huge part of my life that was taken from me.
Radley has just confirmed his own potential motive for killing Lanny.
Radley was a suspect. I mean, there's no 2 ways about it. Again, 3 people in the home, one's dead.
We knew at the conclusion of his statement, we wanted to go back to the house and see if anything was in there that was corroborative of what he was talking about. When he told us he went to his door and could look and see into the living room from there, could he really? So we went and looked ourselves to see that, yeah, you could see into the living room. And so it corroborated that he could see what he said he saw.
During Radley's interview, he also said after the shooting, he brought his mother a bottle of water to calm down.
Where'd the bottle of water go? We checked in the bathroom where Donna Horwitz lay on the ground, there was a single water bottle on the sink right above his head. So we collected that water bottle to be processed for DNA. We're basically able to corroborate just about anything and everything that Radley Horwitz told us.
The detectives got the results back from Radley's GSR test, which was negative.
They didn't do it on my mom because she asked for a lawyer first.
Those results and Donna's continued refusal to speak with them lead investigators to one conclusion.
If Radley didn't hurt his dad, it's starting to paint a pretty clear picture and corroborate what we had sort of suspected to begin with. It actually was Donna, and we need to prove it.
Donna Horwitz has become the prime suspect in her husband's murder. But since she refuses to talk, detectives must find another way to get answers.
While I was processing the water bottle for DNA, detectives found Donna's journal.
In her walk-in closet were lingerie drawers and small item drawers like that. And in one of those drawers was the book. It was an actual diary that dated back for quite a little bit.
Donna's diary reveals the Horwitz's lavish lifestyle to be nothing but a mirage.
Lanny Horwitz was upside down on the house. He was in dire need of money.
The most recent entries are about Donna's attempts to put her troubled marriage back together.
Beginning in January of 2011, the entries are just about daily, and they're very lengthy and very detailed. The diary was really black and white evidence in Donna's own words.
You really see the inner workings of her thoughts about this was the script that she had set in her mind for a happy life for both herself and Lanny.
It depicted a woman in Donna who desperately wants a family, but then we see her getting lost in her own self, her own mind. The diary starts to, he doesn't come home again. He's with Francine. He's this. The reality of how Lanny's treating her happens.
Detectives learned that in the spring of 2011, while the couple were divorced and living apart, Lanny asked her to secure a $200,000 loan from her parents.
He shared with her that if she could borrow this amount of money, they could move in together again. Donna believed together, if we can get this $200,000, we can get married again, we can be a family again.
But after Donna gets that money from her parents, she discovers Lanny isn't as invested in saving their marriage.
He would say, I'll be home at 5 o'clock and we can have dinner. And, you know, he would share with her, oh, Francine, and then I had to go to a business dinner. We got tied up.
She'd written in there about, it was my birthday and we had hot dogs for the grill, but he took her to Three Forks on her birthday, which is a very nice steakhouse.
According to her diary, Lanny told her, if I had known that Francine felt about me the way that I do now, I would never have asked you to move back in the house. I think that that was the turning point.
After that, her diary entries take a darker turn.
Donna becomes more and more aware of all the pieces of the puzzle that spell a different reality than the one that she's forecasted for herself and her family.
Donna couldn't even lie to herself anymore. She knew she got taken. And here she had gotten $200,000 from her mom, and what a fool she must have felt like.
You see Donna's words getting worse and worse and worse and rising in intensity through the diary to the explosion that is the homicide.
The last entry prior to the shooting, I think, was a week or two earlier, which was totally also telling because it'd been every day, and then it got fewer and fewer, and then just before the killing, there's nothing.
My father pushed her and pushed her and pushed her, and she snapped.
The diary, combined with the evidence collected from the house, gives detectives a clearer picture of how the shooting took place.
On the day before this crime occurred, he had plans on leaving for a couple of days to North Carolina with Francine. Matter of fact, he had his bags packed.
And he told her that he wanted her out of the house by the time he got back.
Now he wants to break up the family. Now he's very much made a definitive statement about, not only am I doing this, but I want you out of my life. So hope to connect together with him disappears at that point.
If she couldn't have Lanny, no one was going to have Lanny. And she taught him a lesson. She just reacted with that firearm. Both firearms.
Ballistics confirm that after emptying all 5 rounds in the first revolver, Donna retrieved a second pistol from the bedroom and emptied that one too.
The total number of gunshots is clearly indicative of first-degree murder. That's somebody that clearly intends that the target of their shooting, they want them dead.
That was not a defensive shooting, a protect myself shooting. That was, you MFer, how could you do this to us?
On October 6, 2011, 1 week after Lanny's death, Donna Horwitz is arrested.
The hardest part of this entire case was trying to present the evidence in a methodical, logical, sequential form that a jury using common sense would come to the right decision. And we wanted to make sure we got it right.
In January 2013, Donna Horwitz stands trial for first-degree murder. Prosecutors paint her as a woman pushed to the brink by her husband's betrayal.
This was a jilted woman. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
We basically felt that a jury using its common sense would come to that same conclusion, that this is a classic case of love and revenge.
I remember Alethea McRoberts saying about, because the last shot was into his mouth, and that she said that you could tell it was a very vengeful, spiteful thing.
She may have just had enough with him speaking ill and silenced him.
Any bit of sympathy that I had left for my mom was gone when I saw those colored pictures of the worst thing I've ever seen.
The defense ultimately decides to claim Donna was innocent and points the finger at someone else.
They argued that it was Radley that did it.
My mom's lawyer said, I resented my father, and, either that I did it myself or that I hired a hitman.
That's terrible. Like, you talk about not winning Mom of the Year. That's not Mom of the Year. I knew it was a bad defense.
He was living for free in a very nice house in Admiral's Cove, with his dad. He had nothing to gain by hurting his dad.
The prosecution argues that the only thing less likely than Radley shooting his father is him hiring someone else to do it for him.
From our perspective, it didn't make a lot of sense. That was foolish to suggest that you pay good money, a lot of money to hire a professional hitman, and they don't bring their own gun. And there was no evidence of a third person. By checking with the alarm company, there had been no ingress or egress through a door prior to the glass shatter.
On January 17, 2013, the jury is left to consider its verdict.
After about 2 hours of deliberation, they found her guilty as charged of first-degree murder with a firearm, and she was thereafter sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Donna immediately appeals her conviction.
At the very, very end of the trial, the last seconds of the trial, the assistant prosecutor got up there and said, "Oh, by the way, she refused to talk to the police that morning, so,
You can't comment on a defendant's right to remain silent. That's a constitutional issue.
Approximately 2 years after the conviction and sentence, the appellate court felt that was significant enough to reverse the case for a new trial. The retrial, the strategy didn't change. We just went forward and retried the case again, almost identical to the first time.
4 years after Donna's first conviction, she is found guilty again.
She got a 32-year sentence, which is effectively a life sentence.
I do think justice was served. It's tragic that she was so heartbroken, but you just can't go and kill the person that broke your heart.
For mom to kill the father and then to blame your son, Donna will have to reconcile her life when Judgment Day comes for her, and I don't believe it'll be pretty for a person like her.
even though she tried to blame me, I was very sympathetic still to my mom until I saw the pictures of my dad, the morgue autopsy pictures. That was the end of any sympathy for my mom there. When I say I miss my parents, I miss, when I was growing up, when things were good. But, I don't miss the people that they became at all. What my parents did to me, I'm still here and they're not. And I sleep just fine at night.
The quiet, coastal community of Jupiter, Florida, is widely recognized as a sanctuary of wealth, natural beauty, and peaceful security. Located along the scenic shores of South Florida, this beautiful enclave is home to magnificent estates, lush golf courses, and pristine waters that attract successful individuals seeking a quiet refuge from the pressures of metropolitan life. Within this safe haven lies a particularly exclusive gated neighborhood known as Admiral S. Cove, where residents enjoy a high standard of living, protected by private security patrols and advanced technological monitoring systems. In such an environment, the occurrence of a violent offense is extraordinarily rare, making the events of a warm fall morning in the year 2011 particularly shocking to the local community and the nation at large. On the morning of Friday, September 30th, 2011, shortly after 7 o'clock, the tranquil silence of Admiral S. Cove was broken by the activation of a home security alarm. The automated system detected a glass breakage at a grand residence inhabited by a successful 66-year-old businessman named Donna Horwitz, his wife Donna Horwitz, and their 37-year-old son Radley Horwitz. In response to the alert, a private security officer immediately dispatched to the residence on a golf cart. Upon arriving at the front door, the officer was met by Radley Horwitz, who appeared to be in a state of confusion and distress. Radley informed the officer that he had been awakened by the sound of gunfire, shouting, and the blaring of the security alarm, though he was uncertain of the precise sequence of events. Inside the home, Donna Horwitz was standing in the living room, visibly distraught and repeatedly uttering statements expressing profound distress and remarking on how difficult her husband had been, the security officer was directed to the master bathroom, where a tragic scene awaited. Donna Horwitz was found unresponsive in the shower enclosure, having sustained multiple severe injuries that were clearly incompatible with life. A firearm was located near his hand, which initially led the security officer to suspect that the businessman had taken his own life. Acting on this preliminary assumption, the officer moved the firearm to the hallway and attempted life-saving measures, but quickly realized that the resident had already passed away. When municipal law enforcement officers arrived at the scene shortly thereafter, they found Donna and Radley seated in a vehicle parked in the driveway, both appearing to be in a state of deep shock and disbelief. As crime scene investigators began their meticulous examination of the master bathroom, several significant details immediately cast doubt on the initial theory of self-harm. The shower was still running, and the physical evidence within the small space was extensive. Forensic specialists noted that the distribution of physical evidence on the walls, the wash basin, and the bathtub did not align with a self-inflicted incident. Most notably, a telephone receiver was lying on the floor near the hand of the deceased, suggesting that he had been attempting to reach for help or call for assistance during the encounter, an action highly inconsistent with an intentional act of self-destruction. Furthermore, investigators discovered a bullet hole in a towel draped over the glass shower door. The presence of gunpowder, burns, and stippling on the exterior surface of the towel clearly indicated that the shot had been fired from outside the shower enclosure toward the interior, rather than from within. An examination of the firearm found near the body revealed further inconsistencies. The weapon was a 5-shot revolver, yet the physical evidence at the scene indicated that many more than 5 rounds had been discharged. In total, investigators determined that 10 shots had been fired within the bathroom, which would have required a single shooter to completely empty the 5-chambered revolver, manually extract the spent casings, reload the weapon, and fire 5 more times. Alternatively, this mathematical discrepancy suggested the possibility of a second firearm or even 2 separate shooters. A subsequent search of the residence, authorized by a judicial warrant, yielded an extensive collection of 26 firearms, most of which were safely locked away in a secure safe or stored in the attic. However, investigators discovered a second revolver resting on a dresser in the master bedroom, which also contained 5 spent casings. This critical finding pointed heavily toward the use of 2 distinct weapons during the incident, further dismantling the suicide narrative. To identify the individual responsible for this tragic loss of life, investigators sought to interview the 2 surviving members of the household who were present when the security alarm was triggered. Donna Horwitz, who was found in her pajamas and displaying signs of severe emotional distress, declined to provide a statement to the police and immediately requested legal representation. Her son, Radley Horwitz, was more cooperative and agreed to speak with detectives in a patrol vehicle. Radley explained that his relationship with his father had been complex and occasionally strained, describing his father as a highly driven and demanding individual who frequently subjected him to intense mental pressure. Radley also revealed details regarding his own past difficulties, including a prior legal issue involving a federal conviction for the unauthorized purchase of firearm accessories, an incident for which he partially blamed his father's advice. This conviction had resulted in a 5-month term in a minimum security facility and the permanent loss of his right to possess firearms. a consequence that had deeply affected his life. Despite this history of conflict, Radley adamantly denied any involvement in his father's death, explaining that he had been asleep until he was awakened by the sound of gunfire and his mother's screams. He willingly submitted to a gunshot residue test, which subsequently returned a negative result, indicating that he had not recently discharged a firearm. As detectives broadened their inquiry, they focused on the interpersonal dynamics within the Horwitz household and the business relationships of the deceased. Radley informed investigators that his parents had experienced a highly volatile relationship, characterized by multiple marriages and divorces over several decades. He also disclosed that his father had been involved in a close personal and professional relationship with a business partner named Francine. According to Radley, his mother had harbored deep suspicions and resentment regarding this relationship, believing it to be more than a simple business association. This suspicion was compounded by a recent discovery that Lanny had transferred a significant life insurance policy valued at $200,000 to Francine, a transaction that Radley had unwittingly signed as a witness. When investigators interviewed Francine at her nearby residence, they found her deeply grieved by the news of Lanny's death. She confirmed that she and Lanny had been planning to depart that very morning on a business trip to North Carolina. Francine explained that while Lanny had expressed a desire to deepen their relationship and had even proposed marriage, she had declined, preferring to keep their connection primarily professional. She also revealed that Lanny had recently expressed concern for his personal safety, confiding in her that he was apprehensive about his wife's behavior and had been advised to secure his firearms. Francine was able to establish a clear timeline of her activities on the morning of the incident, confirming that she had been preparing for their trip at her Ovechkepna home when the shooting occurred, thereby eliminating her as a suspect. With Francine excluded and Radley's account corroborated by forensic testing and a physical assessment of the home's layout, the focus of the investigation turned decisively toward Donna Horwitz. Because Donna maintained her silence, detectives relied heavily on physical evidence and a thorough search of the residence to reconstruct her state of mind. During the search of her personal quarters, investigators discovered a private journal hidden within a dresser drawer. This diary, containing almost daily entries dating back several months, provided a profound and detailed window into the writer's inner thoughts and emotional deterioration. The journal revealed that beneath the outward appearance of a luxurious lifestyle, the family was facing significant financial strain. Lanny was experiencing severe financial difficulties and had reportedly persuaded Donna to secure a loan of $200,000 from her elderly parents, promising that the funds would enable them to rebuild their lives and remarry. However, after obtaining the money, Donna began to realize that Lanny's commitment to their reconciliation was insincere. Her entries documented a growing sense of betrayal, isolation, and humiliation as she realized that her husband was continuing his close association with Francine. The writings traced a clear trajectory of escalating anger and despair, culminating in a period of silence in the days immediately preceding the tragedy. Investigators concluded that the realization of this betrayal, combined with the imminent departure of her husband on a trip with his business partner, served as the catalyst for a sudden and decisive act of violence. In January of the year 2013, Donna Horwitz stood trial for first-degree murder. The prosecution presented a compelling case based on the physical evidence, the forensic analysis of the two firearms, and the revealing contents of her personal journal, portraying the incident as a crime of passion driven by resentment and a sense of betrayal. The defense attempted to shift suspicion onto Radley, citing his past conflicts with his father and his familiarity with firearms. However, the prosecution successfully refuted this theory, pointing to the negative gunshot residue test, the lack of any physical evidence linking Radley to the weapons, and the illogical nature of the defense's claims. After a brief period of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict of guilty, and Donna was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. This initial conviction was subsequently overturned on appeal due to a constitutional issue regarding a statement made by the prosecution during closing arguments concerning the defendant's decision to remain silent at the crime scene. A new trial was ordered, during which the prosecution presented an almost identical case, focusing strictly on the forensic evidence and the documented motives. In the second trial, the jury once again found Donna guilty of the offense, resulting in a sentence of 32 years in prison, which, given her age, effectively ensured she would spend the remainder of her life incarcerated. An analysis of this tragic case reveals several profound lessons regarding human behavior, the destructive nature of unresolved conflict, and the psychological factors that drive individuals to commit extreme acts of violence. The primary motive in this instance was a complex combination of emotional betrayal, financial exploitation, and the collapse of a carefully constructed social facade. For decades, the perpetrator had invested her identity and security in her marriage, and the high social standing it afforded. When faced with the realization that her husband had used her to secure financial assistance under false pretenses while continuing to distance himself from her, her sense of self-worth was severely compromised. This psychological pressure, built up over months of silent resentment, ultimately found expression in a sudden and devastating release of anger. Such cases occur with unfortunate frequency in society because of the human tendency to mask deep-seated interpersonal issues behind an appearance of success and harmony. In affluent environments, the pressure to maintain a perfect public image can prevent individuals from seeking the professional counseling, mediation, or legal separation that might otherwise diffuse a highly volatile domestic situation. Instead, conflicts are allowed to fester in isolation, away from the support of friends, family, or therapeutic professionals, until they reach a breaking point. For law enforcement and forensic science, this case highlights the critical importance of objective physical evidence in overcoming staged crime scenes and false narratives. The perpetrator's initial attempt to portray the tragedy as a self-inflicted incident was quickly dismantled by the meticulous application of scientific principles. The analysis of bullet trajectories, the study of gunpowder residue on surrounding materials, the precise counting of discharged ammunition, and the utilization of technological records from home security systems all played a decisive role in establishing the truth. By focusing on these immutable physical facts rather than initial impressions, investigators were able to build a cohesive and undeniable case that withstood rigorous legal scrutiny. To prevent similar tragedies, communities must foster a culture that encourages open communication, the healthy resolution of domestic disputes, and the destigmatization of seeking assistance during times of emotional or marital distress. Recognizing the warning signs of emotional abuse, financial manipulation, and escalating resentment within a household is essential for early intervention. When individuals feel supported and have access to constructive avenues for conflict resolution, the likelihood of domestic disagreements escalating into violence is greatly reduced. Ultimately, this case serves as a solemn reminder of the vital importance of integrity, empathy, and mutual respect in all human relationships, and the enduring power of justice in seeking the truth. The pursuit of material wealth and the cultivation of an enviable social status are often perceived as the ultimate safeguards against life's various tribulations. In the quiet, palm-lined streets of affluent gated communities, residents frequently believe that their high-security gates and private patrols insulate them not only from external threats, but also from the darker impulses of human nature. Yet, history repeatedly demonstrates that the most profound crises do not originate from the outside, but rather from within the delicate structures of domestic relationships. The human heart, when governed by resentment, betrayal, and a sense of profound humiliation, is capable of overriding all rational boundaries, regardless of the luxury that surrounds it. To understand why domestic tragedies occur with such troubling frequency across all levels of society, one must analyze the complex psychological motives that drive individuals to extreme measures. At the core of many such cases lies the toxic combination of emotional dependency and financial manipulation. When a relationship is built upon a foundation of power imbalances, where one partner utilizes wealth or emotional leverage to control the other, a volatile dynamic is established. Over time, the subordinate partner may experience a steady erosion of self-esteem, which can eventually transform into a silent, simmering rage. This psychological pressure cooker is further intensified when betrayal becomes apparent. The realization that one has been emotionally deceived and financially exploited can shatter an individual's sense of reality, leading to a sudden, catastrophic breakdown of behavioral restraint. In the analytical study of criminal behavior, investigators frequently look for specific patterns that reveal the perpetrator's state of mind. One of the most critical elements in this process is the concept of overkill, which refers to the application of force far exceeding what is necessary to achieve the physical outcome. From a psychological standpoint, overkill is almost never the work of a detached, professional intruder. Instead, it is the unmistakable signature of a highly personal, emotionally charged conflict. It speaks of a desperate desire to erase the victim, to silence them permanently, and to express a level of anger that has accumulated over years, if not decades. When forensic teams encounter such evidence, their focus almost immediately shifts away from external suspects and toward the victim's immediate circle, where deep-seated grievances are most likely to reside. The tragic events that unfolded in the affluent coastal enclave of Jupiter, Florida, in the early autumn of the year 2011, offer a profound and sobering case study in the destructive power of unresolved marital discord. Jupiter is a community celebrated for its natural beauty, its pristine waterways, and its high concentration of successful, influential individuals. Within this scenic town, the gated neighborhood known as Admiral S. Cove represents the pinnacle of luxury, characterized by sprawling estates, private docks, and manicured golf courses. It was a place where security was considered absolute, and where the residents lived with the comforting assumption that their peace would never be shattered by violence. On the morning of Friday, September 30th, the year 2011, this illusion of absolute safety was abruptly dismantled. Just after 7 in the morning, the silent peace of Admiral S. Cove was broken when a glass break alarm was activated at one of the premier residences. This automated security system immediately alerted the community patrol, prompting a private security guard to dispatch to the home in a golf cart. Upon his rapid arrival at the estate, the guard was met at the entrance by Donna Horwitz, a 37-year-old man who resided at the property with his parents, Lanny and Donna Horwitz. Radley appeared bewildered, explaining that he had been awakened by the sound of gunfire, screaming, and the blaring of the security alarm, but was uncertain of the exact nature of the emergency. As the security guard stepped inside the luxurious residence, he encountered Donna Horwitz standing in the living area. She appeared to be in a state of profound distress, rocking back and forth and repeatedly making remarks regarding her husband, suggesting that he had been a difficult and overbearing presence in their lives. She also suggested to the guard that the situation might be a self-inflicted tragedy, asserting that her husband had been emotionally unstable and had previously spoken of ending his own life. Guided by Radley, the security guard proceeded to the master bathroom, where he was confronted with a grim and undeniable reality. Lying within the shower enclosure was 66-year-old Lanny Horwitz, a highly successful real estate developer and businessman. He was entirely unresponsive, and despite the security guard's immediate efforts to perform life-saving measures, it was quickly apparent that Lanny had already succumbed to multiple injuries. A firearm was located near the body, which initially seemed to support the narrative of a self-inflicted incident. However, when local law enforcement officers arrived to secure the scene, their trained eyes immediately noticed several inconsistencies that cast doubt upon the theory of suicide. The first major clue that disrupted the initial narrative was the physical distribution of evidence within the bathroom. While the defense would later attempt to suggest that Lanny had taken his own life, the patterns of impact on the walls, the sink, and the surrounding fixtures indicated a dynamic and violent struggle rather than a single self-directed action. Furthermore, a detailed examination of the shower door revealed a highly significant detail. A towel draped over the glass door had a clear perforation from a projectile, and surrounding this hole were distinct deposits of gunpowder residue, commonly referred to as stippling. The presence of these residues on the exterior of the towel proved conclusively that the shot had been fired from outside the shower enclosure, aimed inward. This single piece of physical evidence completely undermined the possibility of a self-inflicted injury, confirming to the investigators that they were dealing with a deliberate homicide. As the forensic team meticulously documented the scene, they recovered multiple spent projectiles and casings from various locations within the bathroom, including the floor, the walls, and the bathtub. A count of the evidence revealed that a total of 10 shots had been fired. This discovery presented a significant logical puzzle. The revolver found near Lanny's body was a weapon with a limited capacity, incapable of holding or firing 10 rounds without being manually emptied and reloaded. This physical limitation suggested 2 distinct possibilities to the detectives. Either the perpetrator had carried out the incredibly deliberate act of pausing mid-incident to reload the firearm, or a second weapon had been utilized. The sheer volume of gunfire led some initial investigators to wonder if they were searching for more than one assailant. To resolve this question, law enforcement obtained a search warrant for the entire residence. The search revealed an extensive and highly valuable collection of firearms, totaling approximately 26 weapons, most of which were securely stored in a locked safe and an attic space. However, during their search of the master bedroom, investigators discovered a second revolver resting openly on a dresser. This second weapon also contained 5 spent casings. Subsequent ballistics testing at the crime laboratory would confirm that both revolvers had been discharged during the incident and that all 10 shots had been fired from these 2 household weapons. The perpetrator had indeed exhausted the ammunition in one firearm, retrieved a second weapon from the bedroom, and continued the assault. This level of determination and planning strongly pointed toward a deliberate, first-degree act. With the physical evidence pointing squarely to an internal threat, investigators focused their attention on the only 2 individuals who were present in the home at the time of the alarm. The perimeter of the estate was fully secured, with all windows and doors locked from the inside, and the security system logs indicated that no entry or exit had occurred prior to the arrival of the patrol. Therefore, the circle of suspects was limited to Donna Horwitz and her son, Radley. When officers attempted to interview Donna in the immediate aftermath of the tragedy, she was seated in the passenger side of a vehicle in the driveway, showing signs of severe emotional distress. She declined to provide a formal statement and quickly secured legal representation, invoking her constitutional right to remain silent. While this decision was a protected legal right, it meant that investigators had to rely on other avenues to understand her perspective. Radley, on the other hand, agreed to speak with detectives, cooperating fully and offering a detailed account of his actions that morning. During his interview, Radley explained that his relationship with his father had been complicated and marked by periods of intense emotional pressure. Lanny was described as an exceptionally driven and demanding patriarch who had achieved great financial success, but often subjected his family to emotional manipulation, a behavior Radley described as constant needling. Radley also revealed that his father had previously given him business advice regarding the purchase of certain specialized equipment for his firearms business. This advice ultimately led to Radley's arrest by federal authorities, a conviction, and a 5-month sentence in a minimum security facility, which also resulted in the permanent loss of his firearms license. This history gave Radley a plausible motive for resentment, making him a primary suspect in the early stages of the investigation. However, as detectives sought to verify Radley's account, they found consistent corroboration for his statements. A physical walkthrough of the home confirmed that from his bedroom doorway, Radley could indeed see into the living area, just as he had described. Additionally, Radley's assertion that he had brought his mother a bottle of water to help her calm down was supported by the discovery of a single water bottle resting on the bathroom sink. Most importantly, the results of a gunshot residue test performed on Radley's hands returned completely negative, indicating that he had not discharged a firearm that morning. As investigators continued to search the home for clues that might explain the underlying motive, they discovered a highly personal and revealing piece of evidence in Donna's walk-in closet. Hidden within a drawer was a detailed, handwritten journal kept by Donna, with entries dating back several months, beginning in January of the year 2011. This diary provided detectives with an extraordinary window into the inner workings of Donna's mind, revealing a stark contrast between the family's outward portrayal of wealth and the troubled reality of their personal lives. The journal entries painted a portrait of a woman who felt increasingly isolated, unappreciated, and deeply betrayed. The history of Lanny and Donna's relationship was long and volatile. Having met as teenagers in Buffalo, New York, they had married in the year 1967 and later relocated to Florida to escape the harsh northern winters. Over the decades, they had built a highly affluent lifestyle, but their marriage was far from stable, resulting in multiple divorces and subsequent reconciliations. The diary revealed that during their periods of separation, Lanny had developed a close personal and professional relationship with his female business partner, Francine. According to Donna S. writings, Lanny had convinced her to secure a loan of $200,000 from her elderly parents, promising that this financial infusion would allow them to reunite, rebuild their lives, and officially remarry. Donna complied, believing that she was finally securing the stable, unified family she had always desired. However, once the funds were secured and she moved back into the Admiral S. Cove residence, she discovered that Lanny's commitment to their reconciliation was an illusion. The journal detailed Donna S. growing frustration as Lanny continued to spend significant time with Francine, often leaving Donna alone on important occasions, including her birthday. The psychological turning point occurred when Lanny reportedly made a devastating statement to Donna, expressing that if he had known the depth of his feelings for his business partner sooner, he would never have asked Donna to return to the home. This revelation, combined with the discovery that Lanny had signed over a significant portion of his life insurance policy to his partner, shattered Donna's hope for the future. She realized that she had been financially exploited and emotionally discarded. The diary entries showed a dramatic escalation in anger and despair, culminating in an abrupt cessation of writing just a week before the tragedy occurred. For investigators, the journal provided the definitive motive. It illustrated a classic narrative of love, betrayal, and revenge. On the day preceding the incident, Lanny had finalized plans to embark on a multi-day business trip to North Carolina with his partner, and he had informed Donna that she needed to vacate the residence by the time he returned. Faced with the permanent loss of her marriage, her dignity, and the $200,000 she had obtained from her parents, Donna had reached a breaking point. Armed with the forensic evidence and the deeply revealing journal, authorities arrested Donna Horwitz on October 6, the year 2011, charging her with first-degree murder. In January of the year 2013, she stood trial before a jury. The prosecution presented a compelling, logical case characterizing Donna as a woman scorned who had reacted with immense anger, utilizing two separate household firearms to carry out a final act of retribution. The defense attempted to redirect suspicion toward Radley, highlighting his past legal difficulties and his complicated relationship with his father. However, the prosecution successfully demonstrated that Radley had no logical motive to disrupt his comfortable living arrangement, and that the physical evidence, including the negative gunshot residue test and the locked home security logs, entirely excluded him as a suspect. After a brief deliberation, the jury found Donna guilty as charged, and she was sentenced to life in prison. However, the legal journey did not end there. Donna appealed her conviction, and approximately 2 years later, an appellate court ruled that a statement made by the prosecution during the closing arguments, which commented on her decision to remain silent on the morning of the incident, violated her constitutional rights. Consequently, the conviction was reversed, and a new trial was ordered. The retrial took place 4 years after the initial conviction. The prosecution presented the same meticulous evidence, focusing on the ballistics, the security logs, and the devastating admissions contained within Donna S.'s own diary. The second jury arrived at the same conclusion, finding her guilty once again. She was subsequently sentenced to 32 years in prison, a term that, given her age, effectively ensured she would spend the remainder of her life behind bars. This tragic case offers several profound lessons for communities and individuals alike. It underscores the vital importance of addressing domestic discord and emotional distress through peaceful, professional means, rather than allowing resentment to fester in silence. Wealth and social standing cannot shield individuals from the consequences of emotional neglect and manipulation. When relationships deteriorate to a point of mutual hostility, a clean, legal, and respectful separation is the only safe path forward. Furthermore, the case highlights the critical role of modern forensic science and meticulous police work in uncovering the truth. By relying on objective evidence, such as alarm system logs, ballistics analysis, and handwriting evaluation, investigators can ensure that justice is served and that the innocent are protected. The pursuit of material prosperity often creates a beautiful exterior that can easily mask the deep vulnerabilities of the human condition. In many modern societies, individuals labor under the assumption that financial security and high social standing act as a shield against the darker aspects of human emotion. However, history and criminology consistently demonstrate that the most secure neighborhoods and the grandest estates are not immune to the devastating consequences of unresolved conflict, emotional betrayal, and unchecked resentment. When a community values the appearance of success over the health of its internal relationships, the structural integrity of the household can quietly erode until it reaches a point of sudden and tragic collapse. This phenomenon is particularly evident in hot-end residential enclaves where privacy is paramount and the pressure to maintain a picture-perfect lifestyle is immense. To understand why these tragic cases occur with such troubling frequency, one must examine the complex intersection of emotional dependency and financial entanglement. In many domestic tragedies, the primary catalyst is not a sudden burst of random hostility, but rather a slow, compounding accumulation of grievances. When two individuals share a long history of volatile separations and reconciliations, the emotional stakes become incredibly high. Each cycle of rebuilding a relationship requires a significant investment of vulnerability, trust, and often substantial financial resources. If one party perceives that their investment has been exploited or that they have been deliberately deceived, the resulting feeling of humiliation can quickly turn into a desperate desire for retribution. The human mind, when pushed to its limits by a sense of utter betrayal, sometimes abandons rational decision-making in favor of destructive actions, operating under the tragic illusion that violence can somehow restore a sense of control or balance. On a warm autumn morning in the year 2011, specifically on the morning of Friday, September 30th, the quiet and affluent seaside town of Jupiter, Florida, became the focus of a major criminal investigation. Jupiter is widely recognized as a highly desirable coastal community in the southern region of the state, known for its beautiful waterways, pristine golf courses, and exceptionally wealthy residents. Within this community lies an exclusive gated development known as Admiral S. Cove, a sanctuary of luxury where private security patrols the streets and access is strictly regulated. On that particular morning, just after 7 o'clock, the serenity of this secure neighborhood was shattered. when a glass break alarm was triggered at one of the estate homes. A private security guard quickly responded to the automated alert, arriving at the residence in a golf cart. Upon reaching the property, the guard was met by 37-year-old Donna Horwitz, who appeared confused and claimed to have been awakened by the sound of gunfire, screaming, and the home security system. Inside the residence, Donna Horwitz, the mother of Radley and the wife of 66-year-old Lanny Horwitz, was found in a state of intense distress, repeating comments about how difficult her husband had been. The security guard was directed to the master bathroom, where he discovered the unresponsive body of Lanny Horwitz in the shower enclosure. The immediate presence of a firearm near the body initially led the security guard and early responders to consider the possibility of a self-inflicted tragedy. Given the secure nature of the gated community and the absence of any signs of forced entry, an initial hypothesis of suicide was understandably entertained by those first on the scene. Donna Horwitz suggested to responders that her husband had been experiencing severe emotional instability and had previously discussed ending his own life. This narrative, if accepted, would have provided a quick and tragic explanation for the event, allowing the family to grieve in private. However, the objective reality of forensic science and the meticulous nature of professional law enforcement quickly began to dismantle this convenient explanation, demonstrating why thoroughness is the most vital asset in any criminal investigation. When the local police department arrived to take control of the scene, they approached the environment with a healthy degree of skepticism, which is the hallmark of effective investigative work. Experienced detectives know that the physical layout of a scene speaks a language of its own, one that cannot be manipulated by emotional statements or staged narratives. The first major clue that cast doubt on the theory of self-infliction was the physical state of the bathroom and the position of the victim. Lanny Horwitz was found without clothing, indicating he had been preparing to shower or was actively showering when the incident occurred. It is exceedingly rare for an individual planning self-harm to do so while actively engaging in a routine hygiene activity like showering. Furthermore, investigators noticed a telephone receiver lying on the floor near the victim's hand. The physical positioning suggested that attempt to reach out for assistance or to contact emergency services, an action entirely inconsistent with a deliberate decision to end one's own life. As the forensic team began to process the bathroom, they discovered a series of physical contradictions that made the suicide theory impossible to sustain. A bullet hole was identified in a towel draped over the glass shower door. Crucially, the exterior of the towel exhibited stippling, which refers to the tiny gunpowder burns deposited when a firearm is discharged at close range. The presence of these burns on the outside of the towel proved that the shot had been fired from outside the shower enclosure, pointing inward rather than from within the shower itself. This single detail transformed the inquiry from a tragic case of self-harm into an active homicide investigation. The police were no longer merely documenting a tragedy. They were now tasked with identifying a killer who had attempted to conceal a heinous act behind the guise of a mental health crisis. The sheer volume of physical evidence further clarified the dynamic of the event. Forensic analysis determined that a total of 10 shots had been fired within the confines of the bathroom. The projectile impacts were scattered across the walls, the shower enclosure, and the bathtub, with at least one shot shattering the glass that triggered the security alarm. The firearm located near the victim was a revolver, a weapon that typically holds only 5 or 6 rounds of ammunition. For 10 shots to have been fired, the perpetrator would have had to either utilize a second firearm or undergo the highly deliberate and time-consuming process of emptying spent casings and reloading the cylinder. The discovery of a second revolver on a dresser in the adjoining master bedroom, also containing 5 spent casings, confirmed that 2 separate weapons had been discharged. This revelation introduced a profound level of premeditation and determination. It also raised a critical question for the detectives. Were they looking for a highly coordinated attack involving 2 shooters? Or was a single individual so consumed by anger that they deployed multiple firearms to ensure the completion of the act? With the perimeter of the estate confirmed as entirely secure and locked from the inside, the focus of the investigation narrowed to the only 2 living souls present in the home at the time of the shooting: Donna Horwitz and her son, Radley. In any homicide investigation, the immediate family members are naturally scrutinized, not out of malice, but because statistically and logically, they possess the closest access to the victim and the deepest knowledge of the household dynamics. The behavior of both individuals in the immediate aftermath of the tragedy became a subject of intense analysis. Donna Horwitz had retreated to the passenger seat of a vehicle parked in the driveway, where she exhibited signs of severe emotional shock, rocking back and forth and repeating simple phrases. When approached by detectives for a formal statement, she chose to exercise her right to legal representation and declined to speak with the authorities. While this is a fundamental constitutional right that carries no legal implication of guilt, it meant that the police had to rely heavily on other sources of information to understand what had transpired inside the home. Radley Horwitz, conversely, was highly cooperative in the early stages of the investigation. He agreed to sit in a patrol vehicle with detectives and provide a detailed account of his experiences that morning. He explained that he had been sound asleep when he was suddenly jolted awake by the sound of rapid gunfire, screaming, and the blaring of the home security alarm. Looking out from his bedroom alcove across the living room, he claimed to have seen his mother running in and out of the master bedroom in a state of absolute panic. He described hearing a distinct clicking sound, which he interpreted as the sound of a firearm-S trigger being pulled repeatedly after the ammunition had already been fully exhausted. Radley admitted to approaching the master bedroom and catching a brief glimpse of his father lying on the bathroom floor before retreating in fear. He explained his failure to immediately dial 911 by stating that he was in a profound state of shock and that the community security guards had arrived almost instantly, rendering a telephone call redundant in those first chaotic moments. To verify the validity of Radley's statement, detectives employed a combination of physical testing and spatial reconstruction. They performed a gunshot residue test on his hands, a standard scientific procedure designed to detect the microscopic particles of heavy metals deposited when a firearm is discharged. The results of this test were entirely negative, indicating that Radley had not recently fired a weapon. Furthermore, investigators physically stood in the doorway of Radley's bedroom to verify his sightlines, confirming that he could indeed see the living room area and the entrance to the master suite exactly as he had described. They also recovered a single plastic water bottle from the bathroom sink, located directly above where the victim had been found. This physical object perfectly corroborated Radley's assertion that he had brought his mother a bottle of water to help her calm down in the immediate aftermath of the event. By systematically verifying these small, seemingly insignificant details, the police were able to establish the credibility of the son's account, leaving the mother as the primary focus of their analytical efforts. To establish a clear motive for a crime of this magnitude, investigators had to delve deep into the complex and often painful history of the Horwitz family. Lanny Horwitz was a highly driven entrepreneur who had learned the value of financial success at an early age. Born in Buffalo, New York, in July of the year 1945, he grew up in a comfortable household where his father, a successful furrier and real estate investor, instilled in him a powerful work ethic. Lanny displayed a natural talent for business, trading stocks, and engaging in real estate ventures by the age of 16. His ambition eventually led him to earn a law degree, which he viewed not as a primary profession, but as a valuable tool to protect and advance his real estate development enterprises. In his youth, Lanny met Donna Carnevale, the daughter of a prominent local sports celebrity in Buffalo. The two began dating as teenagers and were married in the year 1967, embarking on a life together that would span several decades and be defined by extreme highs and devastating lows. The couple welcomed their only child, Radley, in the year 1974. Following the severe winter storms that impacted upstate New York, in the year 1977, the family relocated to the rapidly developing state of Florida, where Lanny's real estate ventures flourished. Over the years, Lanny accumulated a substantial fortune, providing his family with an exceptionally high standard of living. They resided in the prestigious Admiral S. Cove development, owned luxury vehicles, maintained a massive secondary estate in the mountains of North Carolina, and traveled extensively. To the casual observer, the Horwitz family represented the absolute pinnacle of the American dream. Yet, beneath this glossy surface lay a highly volatile relationship characterized by emotional distance, frequent arguments, and multiple divorces. Lanny and Donna had married and divorced each other on multiple occasions, creating a pattern of domestic instability that took a heavy toll on the emotional well-being of everyone involved. As detectives investigated the social circle surrounding the family, they uncovered a critical figure who would shed light on the immediate tension within the household. Radley revealed to investigators that his parents' most recent separation had been heavily influenced by his mother's belief that Lanny was involved in an intimate relationship with his long-term female business partner, Francine. Although Lanny insisted that his relationship with Francine was strictly professional, Donna remained deeply suspicious and jealous. The emotional rift deepened when Radley discovered that his father had manipulated him into signing documents that transferred $200,000 of Lanny's life insurance benefits to Francine. This financial maneuver not only alienated Radley from his father, but also intensified Donna's conviction that she was being systematically pushed out of her husband's life in favor of another woman. When detectives interviewed Francine, they found her to be deeply distressed by the news of Lanny's death. She was cooperative and provided a solid alibi, demonstrating that she was at her own residence, preparing for a planned business trip with Lanny at the time of the shooting. Francine revealed to investigators that Lanny had indeed expressed deep romantic feelings for her and had even proposed marriage, which she had declined due to her own recent divorce. More importantly, Francine shared that Lanny had grown increasingly fearful of Donna's volatile temper. He had confided in her that their domestic living situation had become highly toxic, to the point where Francine had advised Lanny to hide his personal collection of firearms for his own safety. According to Francine, Lanny had reached a definitive decision to end his relationship with Donna permanently and had ordered her to vacate the Admiral S. Cove residence by the time he returned from his upcoming trip to North Carolina. The autopsy findings provided by the medical examiner further illuminated the psychological state of the perpetrator. The examination revealed that Lanny Horwitz had sustained 9 bullet wounds. Crucially, the final shot had been delivered directly to the victim's mouth. In the field of forensic psychology, this specific type of wound is often interpreted as a form of symbolic silencing, a highly emotional act of overkill that reflects intense personal rage, hatred, and a desire to completely obliterate the victim's identity. This was not the work of a professional intruder or a cold, calculated assassin. It was the physical manifestation of an emotional explosion. The sheer anger required to stand over an individual, deploy 2 separate firearms, and deliver a final symbolic shot to the face, pointed directly to a deeply personal grievance that had reached its boiling point. The breakthrough that solidified the case against Donna Horwitz came during a thorough search of the residence, where detectives discovered a personal diary hidden in a lingerie drawer within her walk-in closet. This journal, containing daily entries dating back to the beginning of the year 2011, offered an unprecedented window into the deteriorating psychological state of the suspect. Written in her Ove Kepna hand, the diary chronicled the agonizing progression of a woman who felt her identity, her marriage, and her financial security slipping away. Donna's writings revealed that the lavish lifestyle enjoyed by the family was largely an illusion. Lanny was facing severe financial difficulties and was heavily leveraged on their properties. In a desperate bid to save her marriage and reconstruct her family, Donna had secured a $200,000 loan from her aging parents and given the funds to Lanny, believing this act of financial support would cement their reunion and lead to remarriage. Instead, the diary entries documented a painful sequence of neglect and betrayal. Donna wrote of her husband's frequent absences, his constant communication with Francine, and the humiliation of being ignored on significant occasions, such as her birthday, while he showered attention and resources on his business partner. The tone of the journal entries shifted dramatically over the months, transitioning from hopeful efforts at reconciliation to a profound sense of victimization, resentment, and rage. Donna realized that she had been financially exploited, having surrendered her parents' hard-earned money only to be treated with contempt and ultimately ordered to leave the home. The entries grew increasingly desperate, showcasing a mind trapped in a spiral of perceived injustice. The final entries, which ceased entirely a couple of weeks prior to the homicide, painted a chilling picture of a silent brewing storm. The diary was, in essence, a blueprint of a motive, documenting the exact emotional trajectory that led to the tragic events in the bathroom. Armed with this overwhelming combination of forensic evidence, behavioral indicators, and the suspect's own written confessions of rage, the state attorney's office moved forward with the arrest of Donna Horwitz on charges of first-degree murder. In January of the year 2013, the case proceeded to trial, where the prosecution presented a compelling narrative of a woman scorned, driven to the ultimate act of violence by a toxic mix of jealousy, financial ruin, and emotional rejection. The defense, operating under the immense weight of the evidence against their client, attempted to redirect the blame toward Radley Horwitz, pointing to his past legal troubles and his complex relationship with his father as potential motives for the crime. This strategy, however, lacked any supporting physical evidence and was quickly dismantled by the prosecution, who highlighted Radley's negative gunshot residue test, his consistent cooperation, and the absolute lack of any logical benefit he would gain from his father's demise. The jury deliberated for a mere 2 hours before returning a verdict of guilty as charged, resulting in a sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. However, the legal journey did not end there. Donna Horwitz immediately appealed the conviction, citing a fundamental constitutional issue that arose during the closing arguments of the trial. The assistant prosecutor had made a statement to the jury commenting on Donna's refusal to speak with the police on the morning of the crime. Under the Constitution of the United States, a defendant's decision to remain silent cannot be used as evidence of guilt, and any comment by the prosecution regarding this silence is a serious violation of due process. Recognizing the validity of this constitutional protection, the appellate court reversed the conviction and ordered a new trial. The necessity of a second trial placed an immense emotional burden on the surviving family, particularly on Radley, who was forced to once again testify against his own mother and endure the defense's attempts to implicate him in his father's murder. Despite this challenge, the state prepared its case with meticulous care, ensuring that all constitutional boundaries were strictly respected while presenting the same powerful forensic and diary evidence. In the second trial, the jury reached the exact same conclusion, finding Donna Horwitz guilty of the crime. She was subsequently sentenced to 32 years in prison, a term that, given her advanced age, effectively ensured she would spend the remainder of her natural life behind bars. The legal system, though self-correcting and deliberate, ultimately delivered a consistent message of accountability and justice. Analyzing this tragic case yields several profound insights into the natures of domestic crimes and the psychological mechanisms that drive individuals to commit such acts. One of the primary reasons these cases occur with such frequency is the human tendency to mistake material wealth for emotional stability. In many affluent communities, there is a pervasive pressure to present an image of perfection to the outside world. This pressure often prevents individuals from seeking help for domestic discord, marital counseling, or mental health support, out of fear that admitting to personal difficulties will damage their social standing. When emotional conflicts are kept hidden behind closed doors, they are allowed to fester in isolation, growing in intensity until they manifest in sudden and catastrophic violence. The case of the Horwitz family serves as a sobering reminder that wealth, luxury, and social prestige cannot compensate for a lack of genuine communication, mutual respect, and emotional maturity within a household. Furthermore, the escalation of commitment is a psychological phenomenon that heavily contributes to these tragedies. Donna Horwitz had invested decades of her life, her emotional well-being, and ultimately a substantial sum of her parents' money into a highly volatile relationship. When an individual has invested so heavily in a specific outcome, the realization that their efforts have failed and that they have been deceived can be psychologically devastating. Rather than accepting the loss and walking away to rebuild their life, they may experience a profound sense of cognitive dissonance and humiliation. In their mind, the only way to resolve this intense emotional pain is to strike back at the source of their perceived misery. Understanding this dynamic is crucial for preventing future tragedies, as it highlights the importance of recognizing when a relationship has become fundamentally unsafe, and having the courage to disengage entirely rather than continuing to invest in a destructive cycle. The details of this case also highlight the critical clues and sophisticated methods that law enforcement officers rely on to solve complex crimes. In the modern era, criminals often attempt to stage crime scenes to mimic accidents or self-harm, believing that they can easily deceive first responders. However, professional investigators are trained to look beyond the superficial presentation of a scene and analyze the physical evidence with scientific precision. The detection of gunpowder stippling on the outside of the towel, the realization that the number of discharged rounds exceeded the capacity of a single weapon, and the analysis of the telephone receiver were all crucial forensic elements that exposed the staging attempt. These details demonstrate that physical evidence is inherently honest. It does not lie, it does not forget, and it cannot be coerced. The success of this investigation is a testament to the dedication, patience, and meticulousness of the forensic teams and detectives who refused to accept a convenient explanation at face value. To prevent such tragic outcomes in the future, society must draw important life lessons from these events. First and foremost, we must foster a culture that prioritizes emotional health and open communication over material success. Families should be encouraged to seek professional support when experiencing chronic conflict, and communities must work to reduce the stigma associated with domestic counseling and mental health services. Additionally, individuals must learn to recognize the early warning signs of a toxic or abusive relationship. When a partnership is characterized by extreme volatility, manipulation, financial exploitation, and fear, it is imperative to prioritize personal safety and seek help from external resources, such as domestic violence support networks or legal professionals. It is never a sign of weakness to walk away from a destructive situation. Rather, it is an act of profound self-preservation and strength. For law enforcement agencies, this case offers valuable strategies for expediting the resolution of domestic homicides. One of the most effective methods is the rapid deployment of multidisciplinary teams, including forensic specialists, digital analysts, and behavioral experts, to the scene of a crime as quickly as possible. By immediately capturing high-resolution digital documentation of the environment and preserving physical evidence before it can be contaminated, investigators can establish an objective foundation for the case. Furthermore, the systematic use of non-invasive testing, such as gunshot residue analysis and DNA preservation, can quickly eliminate innocent suspects and narrow the focus of the inquiry. Finally, the thorough exploration of a suspect's digital and physical footprints, including personal journals, text messages, and financial records, is essential for establishing a clear timeline and motive, ensuring that justice can be served swiftly and accurately. The story of the Horwitz family is a profound tragedy that illustrates the devastating consequences of unchecked anger, betrayal, and the pursuit of a false ideal of success. Yet, through the darkness of this event, the resilience of the human spirit and the triumph of justice shine brightly. The dedication of the investigating officers, the scientific precision of the forensic teams, and the patience of the legal system ultimately ensured that the truth was revealed, and the perpetrator was held accountable. For the survivors, particularly Radley, the journey toward healing is long and challenging, requiring immense courage to rebuild a life from the ashes of a family tragedy. By reflecting deeply on these events, drawing meaningful lessons, and committing ourselves to fostering healthier, more empathetic communities, we can work together to prevent such senseless acts of violence and ensure that the values of truth, justice, and humanity continue to prevail. In the quiet, sun-drenched coastal enclaves of southern Florida, there exists an unspoken expectation of security and peace. The beautiful seaside town of Jupiter, situated right on the coast, represents the pinnacle of this affluent, comfortable lifestyle. With its manicured golf courses, private water access, luxury vehicles, and high-profile residents, it is a community where the challenges of the outside world often seem distant. Within this prestigious region, the exclusive neighborhood known as Admiral's Cove stands as a testament to success, privacy, and architectural grandeur. Yet, as history has shown time and again, the existence of great wealth and external harmony cannot always shield a household from the complex, volatile undercurrents of human emotion. Underneath the polished surface of even the most ideal settings, the accumulation of unresolved grievances, financial strain, and deep emotional betrayal can slowly build toward a tragic conclusion. On a warm autumn morning in late September, specifically on Friday, September 30th, in the year 2011, this illusion of absolute safety was shattered. Just after 7 in the morning, private security personnel at Admiral's Cove responded to an automated alarm triggered at a local residence. The home belonged to Donna Horwitz, a 66-year-old developer, his wife Donna Horwitz, and their 37-year-old son, Radley Horwitz. One of the security sensors had detected a glass break, prompting a guard to quickly travel to the property. Upon arriving, the guard was met by Radley, who appeared to have just stepped outside. Inside the house, a scene of confusion and distress was unfolding. Donna Horwitz was standing in the living room, visibly shaken, repeating phrases about her husband and expressing how difficult their relationship had been. She suggested to those present that her husband had been emotionally unstable and that the incident might have been a self-inflicted tragedy. However, when the security guard was directed to the master bathroom, the physical evidence immediately began to tell a very different story. Donna Horwitz was found in the shower, and although a firearm was located nearby, several key details immediately caught the attention of responding personnel and investigators. The shower was still running, and there was extensive forensic evidence distributed across the walls, the sink, and the bathtub. Most notably, a telephone receiver was lying near the victim's hand, suggesting a desperate attempt to reach out for assistance. From a logical and investigative standpoint, an individual attempting to end their own life does not typically try to make a phone call in their final moments. This single detail cast immediate doubt on the theory of a self-inflicted incident and suggested that a far more deliberate, external act had occurred. When law enforcement officers arrived at the scene, they began a methodical examination of the premises. They quickly discovered that all windows and doors were securely locked from the inside, meaning there was no sign of forced entry or an external intruder. This crucial piece of information narrowed the focus of the investigation dramatically, indicating that whoever was responsible for the act had to have been inside the home at the time of the incident. In total, only 3 people were present in the residence that morning: Donna Horwitz, Donna Horwitz, and their son, Radley. Therefore, the search for answers had to begin within the family unit itself. As detectives processed the scene, they uncovered more forensic anomalies that thoroughly disproved the suicide theory. A close examination of a towel draped over the shower door revealed a bullet hole accompanied by stippling, which is the pattern of gunpowder burns left when a firearm is discharged at close range. The presence of stippling on the outside of the towel indicated that the shot had been fired from outside the shower toward the inside, rather than from within the shower itself. Furthermore, a detailed count of the ballistic evidence revealed that 10 shots had been fired. The revolver found near the body was a 5-shot capacity weapon, which meant it was physically impossible for that single firearm to have discharged 10 times without being emptied, cleared of spent casings, and fully reloaded. During their search of the residence, officers discovered an extensive collection of firearms, totaling approximately 26 weapons, many of which were safely locked away in a safe and in the attic. However, they located a second 5-shot revolver resting on a dresser in the master bedroom, which also showed signs of recent discharge, containing 5 spent casings. The ballistics testing would later confirm that both revolvers had been used in the incident, suggesting a relentless determination on the part of the shooter. The sheer number of shots fired spoke to an intense emotional reaction, often referred to by investigators as overkill. In forensic science, such overkill is frequently indicative of a crime of passion, where the perpetrator is driven by deep-seated anger, resentment, or a desire for retribution, rather than a cold, calculated financial motive alone. To understand why such a tragic event could occur in an environment of such privilege, it is necessary to examine the complex history of the Horwitz family. Lanny Horwitz had grown up in Buffalo, New York, where he learned the value of business acumen and financial independence from a young age. His father had been a successful furrier and real estate investor, instilling a strong work ethic in Lanny. By the age of 16, Lanny was already trading stocks and engaging in real estate ventures, proving himself to be a natural entrepreneur. He met Donna when they were teenagers, and after a courtship during their youth, they married in 1967, just before Donna's 21st birthday. Following Lanny's graduation from law school, the couple decided to move to Florida to escape the harsh northern winters, particularly after the famous blizzard of 1977. In Florida, Lanny's real estate ventures flourished, allowing him to build a highly successful life and provide an extremely comfortable standard of living for his wife and their only child, Radley, who was born in 1974. The family enjoyed first-class travel, luxurious homes in both Florida and North Carolina, and all the external symbols of high society. Yet, behind this facade of prosperity, the personal relationships within the household were increasingly strained. Over the years, the marriage between Lanny and Donna became highly volatile, characterized by multiple separations, a divorce in the year 2000, and subsequent attempts at reconciliation. Radley described his father as a highly driven, often demanding individual who could be emotionally abrasive and challenging to live with. Radley himself had experienced significant personal setbacks, including a federal conviction related to an unauthorized firearm accessory purchase, which he blamed in part on his father's legal advice. This conviction resulted in a brief period of incarceration and the permanent loss of his right to possess firearms, a loss that deeply impacted his life and added to the complex family dynamics. When detectives began interviewing the surviving family members, they encountered 2 very different responses. Radley was cooperative, agreeing to speak with investigators in detail and immediately consenting to a gunshot residue test on his hands. He explained that he had been asleep when he was awakened by the sound of gunfire screams and the home security alarm. He recalled seeing his mother in a state of extreme distress and attempting to comfort her with a bottle of water, which investigators later recovered from the bathroom sink and processed for DNA evidence. The results of Radley's gunshot residue test were negative, and his account of what he could see from his bedroom door was physically verified by detectives who reconstructed the sightlines of the house. Donna Horwitz, on the other hand, declined to provide a statement to the investigators and immediately sought legal representation. While the exercise of one's legal rights is a standard part of the judicial process, it left investigators with the task of finding other ways to reconstruct her thoughts and potential motives. The breakthrough in the case came during a search of the master bedroom, where detectives discovered a personal journal hidden in a closet drawer. This diary, which contained detailed daily entries starting in early 2011, provided an extraordinary window into Donna's mind and the deteriorating state of her marriage. The journal entries revealed a profound sense of isolation, disappointment, and betrayal. It became clear that the lavish lifestyle the family presented to the world was increasingly unstable. Lanny was facing significant financial difficulties, and the couple's relationship was deeply fractured by the presence of a female business partner, Francine, with whom Lanny spent a great deal of time. Donna's writings detailed her feelings of rejection and her belief that Lanny was engaging in an extramarital relationship, despite his assurances that it was strictly professional. According to the diary and subsequent interviews, Lanny had convinced Donna to secure a loan of $200,000 from her mother under the pretense of rebuilding their life together. Donna complied, believing that this financial contribution would lache, restore her family, and allow them to remarry. However, after the funds were transferred, Lanny's behavior did not change. He continued to spend time with his business partner, leaving Donna feeling exploited and foolish. The emotional turning point came when Lanny allegedly made comments suggesting he regretted asking Donna to move back in, combined with plans to travel to North Carolina with his business partner, during which time he wanted Donna to vacate the residence permanently. The realization that her attempts to save her marriage had failed and that her financial contribution had been utilized while she was being discarded appears to have driven Donna to a state of utter despair and fury. The final entries in her diary showed a sharp increase in emotional intensity before stopping abruptly in the weeks leading up to the incident. For investigators, this journal provided the essential element of premeditation and motive, illustrating a classic narrative of a partner who felt deeply wronged, financially exploited, and emotionally abandoned. The subsequent trial in January of 2013 presented this evidence to a jury, which found Donna Horwitz guilty of first-degree murder, although this conviction was later overturned on appeal due to a technical error involving comments made by the prosecution regarding the defendant's silence. A second trial was conducted. The second trial resulted in another guilty verdict, and Donna was sentenced to 32 years in prison, ensuring that justice was ultimately served. From this tragic case, several profound life lessons can be drawn regarding the prevention of domestic tragedies and the healthy management of interpersonal conflict. First, it highlights the danger of allowing resentment and silent anger to accumulate without seeking constructive, professional assistance. In many domestic cases, the escalation to violence is not a sudden, unpredictable event, but rather the culmination of months or years of unresolved emotional pain and perceived betrayal. When individuals feel trapped in toxic dynamics and are unable to communicate openly, the risk of a psychological break increases dramatically. Seeking family counseling, mediation, or legal separation at an early stage can provide a safe outlet for these intense emotions, preventing them from turning into destructive actions. Second, the case underscores the importance of financial transparency and the risks of using financial leverage as a means to repair broken personal relationships. Attempting to buy affection or secure a partner's commitment through substantial financial transactions often leads to feelings of resentment on one side and exploitation on the other. Healthy relationships must be built on mutual respect, open communication, and shared values, rather than financial dependency or transactional arrangements. For law enforcement, this case offers valuable insights into the rapid and effective resolution of complex domestic investigations. The success of the investigating officers was rooted in their meticulous attention to detail at the crime scene. By refusing to accept the initial staging of the incident as a suicide, and instead focusing on physical anomalies, such as the telephone receiver, the bullet trajectory through the towel, and the capacity of the firearm, they were able to quickly redirect their efforts toward a homicide investigation. The immediate use of forensic tests, such as the gunshot residue test, allowed them to eliminate potential suspects early on, while the discovery and thorough analysis of personal documents, like the hidden journal, provided the key to unlocking the perpetrator's psychological state. Ultimately, the resolution of this case stands as a powerful reminder of the importance of justice, the dedication of law enforcement personnel, and the enduring truth that external wealth and status cannot substitute for genuine human connection, integrity, and respect within the home. By analyzing these events, vi kep to hat, empathy, objectivity, and a commitment to learning, society can better understand the warning signs of domestic distress and work together to prevent similar tragedies from occurring in the future. The human psyche under pressure often behaves in ways that defy superficial logic, especially when shielded by the manicured lawns and high security gates of affluent communities. In many high-end neighborhoods, there exists an unspoken expectation of tranquility and order, a belief that material success serves as a natural barrier against the chaotic impulses of violent crime. Yet, history repeatedly demonstrates that wealth does not insulate individuals from the baseline human emotions of jealousy, resentment, greed, and desperation. In fact, the pressure to maintain an illusion of flawless prosperity can often exacerbate domestic tensions, turning private residences into pressure cookers where disputes simmer in absolute silence until they reach a tragic boiling point. To understand why these deep-seated conflicts frequently occur and how they eventually erupt, one must look beyond the physical boundaries of affluent enclaves and examine the complex web of interpersonal relationships, financial entanglements, and psychological deterioration that often precedes such events. When analyzing the motives behind domestic crimes of this nature, investigators and psychologists frequently identify a toxic combination of emotional betrayal and financial manipulation. In many instances, the primary driver is not a sudden, unprompted burst of anger, but rather a slow, calculated accumulation of grievances that spans several years or even decades. Human relationships are built on expectations of mutual respect and partnership. And when one party systematically undermines those expectations through emotional abuse, infidelity, or financial deception, the foundation of the relationship begins to crumble. In affluent settings, These dynamics are often complicated by the high stakes involved. The fear of losing social status, the dread of financial ruin, and the pain of being replaced by a newer partner can push an individual toward an extreme psychological state. When a person feels that they have been discarded, humiliated, and financially exploited by someone they once trusted, their perception of reality can become distorted, leading them to believe that the only way to regain control or achieve justice is through a final, decisive act of retribution. The frequency of these occurrences in contemporary society can be attributed to several systemic and psychological factors. First, there is often a profound isolation that accompanies high social and economic status. Families living in exclusive communities may go to great lengths to hide their internal struggles from neighbors, friends, and even extended family members, fearing the gossip and loss of prestige that might accompany a public breakdown of their marriage or business. This lack of external support and intervention means that toxic behaviors can continue unabated behind closed doors, without the helpful mediation of objective third parties. Additionally, the availability of financial resources can sometimes facilitate destructive behaviors, such as the accumulation of private weapon collections or the funding of secretive lifestyle choices, which only serve to heighten the danger within the household. The refusal to seek professional psychological assistance, combined with an intense focus on preserving outward appearances, creates an environment where problems are swept under the rug until they can no longer be contained. To reconstruct the events of et jhene domestic tragedies and bring the perpetrators to justice, law enforcement professionals must rely on a highly sophisticated array of physical, behavioral, and scientific clues. In cases where a crime scene is staged to look like a self-inflicted incident, investigators look for discrepancies between the physical evidence and the laws of physics. One of the most critical elements in this process is the analysis of firearm dynamics, including the presence of gunpowder residue, the angle of entry, and the distance from which a weapon was fired. For example, when a firearm is discharged in close proximity to a surface, it leaves distinct markings, such as stippling or thermal singeing, which indicate the precise trajectory and origin of the shot. If these markings appear on the outside of defensive barriers, such as a shower curtain or a draped towel, rather than on the individual who sustained the injuries, it immediately alerts forensic specialists that an external actor was involved. Furthermore, the sheer quantity of ammunition expended can provide invaluable insights into the perpetrator's state of mind. An excessive number of rounds fired, particularly those directed at highly sensitive areas of the body, often points to a crime of passion, where the perpetrator was driven by intense anger, resentment, or a desire to completely silence the victim. In addition to ballistics and physical forensics, behavioral cues and the preservation of biological evidence play a monumental role in tracking down the perpetrator. When multiple individuals are present in a home where a violent event has occurred, investigators must carefully evaluate the consistency of their statements against the physical reality of the scene. Simple everyday items, such as a discarded water bottle or a misplaced telephone receiver, can hold the key to unlocking the truth. The presence of deoxyribonucleic acid on these objects can place specific individuals at precise locations within the home at critical moments, helping to either corroborate or refute their alibis. Similarly, the study of written records, such as personal diaries, journals, or electronic communications, provides a direct window into the thoughts, anxieties, and potential motives of those involved. These documents often reveal a chronological progression of emotional distress, documenting the transition from hope and reconciliation to profound despair and eventual hostility. By carefully piecing together these written accounts with the physical evidence found at the scene, law enforcement can construct a compelling narrative that leaves no room for reasonable doubt. The apparent sophistication of criminals in these scenarios is often a facade that quickly unravels under close examination. Individuals who have achieved success in business or social spheres may believe that their intelligence and strategic thinking will allow them to outsmart experienced investigators. They might attempt to manipulate the crime scene, present elaborate alibis, or deflect suspicion onto innocent family members. However, the emotional intensity required to commit such a grave act almost always leads to critical mistakes. The impulsive decision to use multiple weapons, the failure to account for security alarm logs, and the inability to maintain a consistent narrative during police interviews are common pitfalls that expose the limits of their planning. True sophistication lies not in the mind of the perpetrator, who is driven by destructive impulses, but in the methodical, objective, and scientific approach of the investigating forces, who quietly gather the fragments of truth until the complete picture emerges. Reflecting on these tragic cases allows society to draw profound life lessons that can prevent future occurrences. The most critical lesson is the importance of open, honest communication and the willingness to walk away from toxic relationships before they reach a point of no return. No amount of financial security or social standing is worth the preservation of a marriage or partnership that is defined by emotional abuse, deceit, and mutual hostility. Recognizing the warning signs of emotional manipulation, such as being coerced into significant financial sacrifices under the guise of reconciliation, is vital for personal safety. Individuals must be encouraged to seek professional counseling, legal counsel, and external support when facing severe domestic discord, rather than attempting to resolve deep-seated conflicts in isolation. Furthermore, communities must foster an environment where seeking help for mental health struggles or domestic difficulties is viewed as a sign of strength rather than a source of shame. For law enforcement agencies, these cases offer valuable insights into how to expedite investigations and secure justice more rapidly. One of the most effective strategies is the immediate and comprehensive containment of the scene, accompanied by the swift preservation of all physical and electronic evidence. Securing digital footprints, such as home security system logs, mobile phone records, and personal computers, should be prioritized alongside traditional forensic collection. The home security log, in particular, can provide an indisputable timeline of events, detailing exactly when doors were opened, when glass was broken, and whether any external intrusion occurred. Additionally, investigators must approach interviews with family members with a high degree of psychological awareness, recognizing that trauma and guilt can manifest in diverse ways. By comparing behavioral patterns with physical evidence, such as negative results on a gunshot residue test or the precise location of biological material, officers can quickly narrow down their list of suspects and focus their efforts on the true source of the crime. To fully understand how these elements converge in a real-world scenario, we can examine the detailed history of a prominent family whose lives were upended by a devastating event in the coastal community of Jupiter, Florida. The setting was Admiral S. Cove, an ultra-exclusive residential development known for its deep water canals, manicured golf courses, and luxurious homes. For many years, this neighborhood was considered a safe haven, where wealthy residents could enjoy a peaceful and secure lifestyle far removed from the anxieties of urban crime. The community was protected by 24-hour private security, gated entryways, and sophisticated home alarm systems designed to detect the slightest breach. Yet, on a warm fall morning in the year 2011, this peaceful enclave became the center of a major homicide investigation that would expose the dark undercurrents of a family dynamic built on financial strain, emotional manipulation, and unresolved bitterness. The victim of this tragedy was Donna Horwitz, a 66-year-old businessman who had spent his life pursuing financial success with relentless determination. Born in Buffalo, New York, on July 30, 1945, Donna grew up in a comfortable and hard-working household. His father had been a successful furrier who later transitioned into real estate, instilling in young Donna a strong work ethic and a deep appreciation for the power of financial independence. By the age of 16, Donna was already active in trading stocks and working alongside his father in various real estate ventures. He was a natural entrepreneur, highly motivated and driven to excel in every endeavor he undertook. He went on to earn a law degree, which he viewed not necessarily as a career path, but as a powerful tool to protect and enhance his business interests in the highly competitive world of property development. In his youth, Donna met Donna, a warm and popular young woman who came from a prominent local family in Buffalo. Her father, Dan Carnevale, was a well-known baseball figure and local celebrity, which gave the family a high social standing in the community. Donna and Donna began dating when they were teenagers, and their relationship blossomed into marriage in 1967, just before Donna's 21st birthday. The wedding was a major social event celebrated by their families and covered by the local newspapers. In the early years of their marriage, the couple welcomed their only child, a son named Radley, born in 1974. A few years later, seeking to escape the brutal winters of upstate New York, including the historic blizzard of 1977, the family made the decision to relocate to the rapidly growing state of Florida, where the real estate market offered immense opportunities for wealth creation. In Florida, Lanny's business acumen paid off handsomely, allowing him to provide an exceptionally high standard of living for his family. They built a massive home in Admiral S. Cove, purchased luxury automobiles, traveled extensively to international destinations like London and Italy, and constructed a grand secondary residence in the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina. To any outside observer, the Horwitz family appeared to have achieved the ultimate American dream. However, behind this glittering facade, the marital relationship between Donna and Donna was highly volatile and marked by a repeating cycle of conflict, separation, and reconciliation. The couple married and divorced multiple times, unable to live together peacefully, yet seemingly unable to fully sever their ties. As the years progressed, the emotional distance between Donna and Donna grew wider, exacerbated by Lanny's business activities and his interactions with other individuals. In the year 2000, the couple divorced once again, with Donna harboring deep suspicions that Donna had become romantically involved with his business partner, a woman named Francine. Despite these suspicions and the legal termination of their marriage, Donna and Donna eventually resumed living together under the same roof, driven by a mutual desire to rebuild their family unit and perhaps reclaim the happiness of their earlier years. However, this arrangement did not bring peace. Instead, It set the stage for a tragic sequence of events fueled by financial distress and emotional manipulation. By the year 2011, Lanny's financial situation had become increasingly precarious. Despite his outward appearance of wealth, he was facing severe cash flow issues and was heavily leveraged on his properties. In an attempt to secure liquidity, Lanny approached Donna with a proposition. He suggested that if she could secure a loan of $200,000 from her elderly mother, they could use those funds to stabilize their finances and formalize their reconciliation by getting married once again. Believing that this financial contribution would finally secure her place as Lanny's wife and partner, Donna obtained the money from her family and handed it over to him. However, once the funds were in his possession, Lanny's attitude toward Donna began to shift. He remained deeply involved with Francine, frequently leaving Donna alone while he attended business dinners and planned trips with his partner. The emotional toll of this perceived betrayal was documented in exquisite detail within the pages of a private journal that Donna kept in her bedroom. In her daily entries, which began in January of 2011, Donna recorded her deepest anxieties, her longing for a stable family life, and her growing realization that she had been financially exploited. She described how Lanny would make promises to spend time with her, only to cancel at the last minute to be with Francine. The journal captured a painful progression of thoughts, moving from hope and devotion to profound resentment and anger. Donna felt humiliated, realizing that she had compromised her family's financial security for a reconciliation that was never going to materialize. The emotional pressure reached a critical peak in the late summer of 2011, when Lanny finalized plans to take a multi-day business trip to North Carolina with Francine and informed Donna that he wanted her to pack her belongings and vacate the Admiral S. Cove residence by the time he returned. For Donna, this demand represented the absolute destruction of her hopes and the ultimate public humiliation. The realization that she was being discarded, while her rival would accompany Lanny to the very mountain home she had helped build, proved to be more than her psyche could bear. On the morning of Friday, September 30th, 2011, as Lanny prepared for his journey and stood in the master bathroom shower, a series of events unfolded that would end his life and shatter the remaining fragments of the Horwitz family. Just after 7 o'clock in the morning, the silent security monitoring station at Admiral S. Cove received an automated alarm signal indicating a glass break at the Horwitz residence. A private security guard was immediately dispatched to the property on a golf cart. Upon his arrival, the guard was met in the driveway by 37-year-old Radley Horwitz, who had been sleeping in a guest wing of the house. Radley appeared confused and alarmed, stating that he had been awakened by the sound of gunfire, screaming, and the home security alarm. Inside the house, the guard found Donna standing in the living room in her pajamas, visibly distraught and repeating that Lanny was awful and that he had been talking about ending his own life. Radley directed the security guard to the master bathroom, where they discovered a scene of immense physical devastation. Lanny was lying in the shower, which was still running, having sustained multiple fatal injuries. A revolver was located on the floor near his body. Believing he was responding to a tragic self-inflicted incident, the security guard moved the weapon to the hallway to ensure safety and attempted to perform life-saving measures, but quickly realized that Lanny had already passed away. When the local police arrived shortly thereafter, they began a methodical examination of the scene. quickly identifying several key details that did not align with the narrative of a suicide. The first critical clue was the physical positioning of the victim and the items surrounding him. Lanny was found on his side, with a telephone receiver lying near his hand. Forensic analysis of the bathroom indicated that he had made a desperate attempt to reach the telephone after sustaining his initial injuries. This behavior was highly inconsistent with a self-inflicted incident, as an individual intending to end their own life would have no reason to attempt to place an emergency phone call. Furthermore, when investigators examined the shower door, they discovered a bullet hole in a towel that had been draped over the glass. The outside of the towel exhibited clear stippling patterns, which are the characteristic gunpowder burns left when a firearm is discharged at close range. The presence of these markings on the exterior of the towel proved that the shots had been fired from outside the shower enclosure, pointing directly to the presence of an active assailant. As the forensic team processed the scene, they recovered a total of 10 spent projectiles from the bathroom walls, floor, and bathtub. The revolver found near Lanny's body was a 5-shot weapon, meaning it did not possess the capacity to discharge 10 rounds without being emptied and reloaded. This discovery raised the possibility of a second weapon or a highly deliberate reloading process. A thorough search of the master bedroom quickly revealed a second revolver resting on a dresser. This second weapon also contained 5 spent casings. Ballistics testing would later confirm that both firearms had been used in the incident, with the perpetrator firing 5 rounds from the first weapon, retrieving the second firearm from the bedroom, and discharging 5 additional rounds to complete the act. With no signs of forced entry and the home security logs confirming that all doors and windows had remained locked from the inside prior to the alarm being triggered, the scope of the investigation narrowed to the only 2 other individuals present in the home: Donna and Radley. Investigators immediately sought to interview both family members to determine their movements and potential motives. Donna, sitting in the passenger seat of a car in the driveway, was in a state of apparent shock, rocking back and forth and refusing to provide a statement to the police. Her legal representative quickly advised authorities that she would not be participating in any interviews. Radley, on the other hand, chose to cooperate fully with the investigation. He agreed to accompany detectives to the police station for a detailed recorded interview. During his statement, Radley described being awakened by the sound of rapid gunfire and hearing his mother screaming. He explained that he looked out of his room and saw his mother running in and out of the master bedroom in a state of panic. He also mentioned hearing a distinctive clicking sound, which investigators recognized as the sound of a revolver being dry, fired after all ammunition had been expended. Radley admitted that his relationship with his father had been highly strained, largely due to a prior legal incident in which he was convicted of purchasing an illegal firearm accessory based on his father's advice, resulting in a 5-month federal prison sentence and the loss of his ability to legally possess firearms. Despite this past resentment, Radley adamantly denied any involvement in the shooting and voluntarily submitted to a gunshot residue test. The results of the gunshot residue test on Radley's hands were negative, indicating that he had not recently discharged a firearm. Meanwhile, investigators began to corroborate the details of his statement. Radley had mentioned bringing his mother a bottle of water to help calm her down after the shooting. Forensic technicians processing the crime scene discovered a single water bottle resting on the bathroom sink directly above where Lanius' body had been found. Analysis of the biological material on the water bottle revealed the presence of Donna S. deoxyribonucleic acid, confirming that she had been in the immediate vicinity of the crime scene and supporting Radley S. account of the morning S timeline. The discovery of Donna S. detailed journal in her bedroom closet provided the final, crucial piece of evidence regarding her motive. The written entries painted a vivid portrait of a woman who felt deeply betrayed, financially ruined, and emotionally abandoned. The timeline in the diary showed a direct correlation between her rising anger and the ultimate escalation of violence on the morning of September 30th. The fact that the daily entries abruptly stopped a couple of weeks prior to the incident suggested to investigators that her emotional struggle had resolved into a definitive, tragic decision. On October 6, 2011, 1 week after the passing of her husband, Donna Horwitz was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Her trial, which took place in January of 2013, focused heavily on her journal entries and the forensic evidence from the crime scene. The prosecution presented a compelling case, arguing that Donna was a woman scorned who had reacted avec immense rage to Lanny's impending departure and his ongoing relationship with Francine. They emphasized the physical evidence of the two weapons, the stippling on the towel, and the final, close-range injury that silenced the victim as clear indications of premeditation and intent. In a dramatic turn, the defense attempted to shift the blame onto Radley, arguing that he possessed a stronger motive due to his past legal troubles and his resentment over his federal prison sentence. They suggested that Radley had either committed the act himself or hired an accomplice to do so. However, the prosecution successfully countered this argument by highlighting the negative gunshot residue test, the lack of any physical evidence, placing a third person at the scene, and the home security logs which confirmed that no entry or exit had occurred before the glass break alarm was triggered. After a brief period of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict of guilty, and Donna was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. However, the legal battle did not end there. Donna's defense team filed an appeal based on a constitutional issue that occurred during the closing arguments of the trial. The assistant prosecutor had made a comment regarding Donna S.'s refusal to speak to the police on the morning of the incident, which the appellate court ruled was an improper comment on a defendant's constitutional right to remain silent. Consequently, the conviction was overturned, and a retrial was ordered. The second trial, held approximately 4 years later, followed a very similar path. The prosecution presented the same meticulous combination of forensic ballistics, biological evidence, and the revealing contents of Donna S.'s journal, while carefully avoiding any mention of her post-arrest silence. Once again, the evidence proved overwhelming. The jury delivered a second guilty verdict, and Donna was sentenced to 32 years in federal prison, a term that, given her age, effectively ensured she would spend the remainder of her life behind bars. This tragic case serves as a powerful reminder of the destructive nature of unresolved domestic conflict and the illusion that wealth can shield individuals from the consequences of emotional and financial betrayal. It highlights the incredible dedication and precision of modern law enforcement forces, who utilized ballistics, behavioral analysis, and forensic science to uncover the truth and ensure that justice was served. Ultimately, the story of the Horwitz family stands as a profound warning to communities everywhere about the importance of seeking help, establishing healthy boundaries, and choosing the path of peaceful separation over the destructive impulses of anger and revenge.